Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming.
I'm pretty sure that most people consider America as one of the powerful countries in the world. This is the country where we all have equal freedom. But have you ever wondered how America became what America today? Since times immemorial, America faced many issues such as being under British control, confront Indian tribe, and more. Even though in the past America used to be weak, it was getting stronger and stronger as they went through the American Revolutionary War. And after they gained independence, Thomas Jefferson, a spoken man for democracy, was one of the American founding fathers, the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, and the third President of the United States. Jefferson was born on April 13, 1743 at Chatwell Plantation in Western Virginia. He was born into a wealthy family. Jefferson began formal schooling when he was 9. Later, in 1760, he attended the College of William and Mary, and he later practiced law while also serving as magistrate and then a country magistrate. In addition to this, Jefferson became a member of Virginia House of Burgesses, and he started working as a lawyer in 1767. Eventually, Jefferson was selected as a delegate of Virginia to the Second Continental Congress. So he was a Virginia lawyer and politician before becoming an important person for the American Revolutionary War. To begin with, the influence that leading to the American Revolution. It was the conflict between British Empire and the American 13 colonies. Start when British were broke and in debt because they spent a lot of money in the French Indian War. Therefore, the American colonials were asked to pay the tax by the British. But the Americans realized that the tax legislation such as the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, and the Townshend Revenue Act were bad and unfair. So, the Americans started protesting and boycotting Britain. That is the reason why the British decided to repeal those acts. However, those colonies still belonged to the British, so they would be able to control all the colonies. And then, the British sent 1,000 troops to Boston in order to take control, and they aimed to make colonies pay money for them. This action really upset the Americans. They started protesting against the British military, and there were 5 colonists shot by the British Army. This is even known as Boston Massacre. Finally, Boston and Massachusetts were under the direct rule of Great Britain. And the other colonies were afraid that they would get into trouble like what happened to Boston. So the 5th district delegate from 12 colonies gathered in Philadelphia in 1724 at the First Continental Congress, including Patrick Henry, George Washington, John Adams, Samuel Adams, John Jay, and John Dickinson, in order to address the grievances against the British government. And years after, the Second Continental Congress was composed of many of the same delegates as the First Continental Congress, the Founding Fathers. The meeting of the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia after the Battle of Lexington and Concord, including new members, Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson. They voted to build a continental army and have George Washington as the commander-in-chief. This was the first major war in the American Revolution, where it took place at the Bleed Hill in Boston. So we call it the Battle of Bunker Hill. Even though the British defeated the American colonies, the Americans did not give up. They had even more encouragement to continue the Revolutionary War. And it led to the introduction of the Declaration of Independence. This is the important response of the Americans to several British acts that hurt Americans while they were under British control. This draft document included 5 sections, which are an introduction, a preamble, a body that split into 2 sections, and a conclusion. The introduction is about the importance of independence for colonies. The body contains the list of grievances against the British and King George III of British Empire. While the preamble included a famous message over time such as, all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Some of this idea was get the inspiration from the European Enlightenment theory. It was also presented to the Congress as a draft for debate and revision on June 28, 1726. And then, on July 4, 1776, the Congress decided to adopt it as the base Phanpraew version with Jefferson's eloquent preamble. Later, this day became an Independence Day of the United States. Furthermore, the Declaration of Independence not only wrote with the aim of independence, but also to unify 13 colonies of Britain to be one. So, this is considered as the greatest articulator of the right of man in American history. After the Americans and British have been fighting for many battles, it finally came to the Battle of Yorktown on September 28 to October 19 in 1781. The large army of Americans, around 14,000 soldiers, and the French force of 36 warships trapped the British army, and the British army was forced to surrender. 2 years after the Battle of Yorktown, there was finally the end of conflicts. Eventually, on the 3rd September 1783, America was recognized as an independent country by the British, as they signed the Treaty of Paris. After the Revolutionary War, President George Washington appointed Jefferson as his Secretary of State in 1790. Jefferson, who was the Democratic Party candidate, lost the president election in 1796, so he became Vice President for President John Adams. But finally, Jefferson was able to defeat John Adams in the election of 1800 and became the 3rd President of the United States. Jefferson's accomplishments during his first term in office were numerous and remarkable. In his first 2 years in office, Jefferson stripped the presidency of all European monarchy trappings, reduces the size of the armed force and administrative bureaucracy, and reduces the national debt from $80 million to $57 million, all in across with his Republican values. However, Jefferson's most important accomplishment as president included aggressive assertion of national government power and unexpectedly liberal reading of the United States Constitution. Also, in 1803, Louisiana was purchased by Jefferson. He brought the property from the Krittapas Napoleonic French spanning to Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains for about $15 million, thereby stripping the sight of the country into one fell swoop. He then designed the notable Lewis and Clark expedition to explore, survey, and report on the newly discovered American lands. Then, his second term is more challenging and less efficient than his first. His effort to execute the several Federalist laws appointed by Judiciary Act of 1801 generally failed. However, the war between Napoleonic France and Great Britain, on the other hand, offered the greater challenge to Jefferson's second term by harassing American vessels. Both British and French aimed to impede American trade with other powers, and Britain in particular sought to impress the American sailors into the British Navy. As a result, Jefferson enacted the Embargo Act of 1807, which effectively halted all trade with Europe. Unfortunately, by the time he left office in 1809, exports has dropped from $108 million to $22 million as a result of his decision. After Jefferson stepped down from his president position, he returned to Monticello, and at the age of 76 years old, he founded the University of Virginia. Jefferson lived until the age of 83. His health has been suffering. But what was it that eventually took his life?
It was certainly a mix of illnesses. Under the contemporary medical treatment, he might have survived a little longer, but not much longer if his main condition was late diagnosed prostate cancer.
Jefferson died on July 4, 1826, on the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And then, July 4th became one of the important national holidays in America. American people spend this day celebrating. To pride Jefferson's successful achievement, his face appears on the Mount Rushmore in South Dakota. Jefferson's face was chosen by Gordon Bogum to represent the growth of the United States. However, there are also other 3 U.S. presidents, including George Washington, the first President of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th President of the United States, and Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. As Thomas Jefferson believed in the equality of people, he was considered as the foundation of new modern democracy. Also, he was an important person who played several different roles during his entire life, including being a lawyer, politician, third president of America, and the most important role is being an author of the Declaration of Independence. Obviously, American nation could not be America as today if there was no Declaration of Independence by Thomas Jefferson. Therefore, he deserved to be selected as the predecessor man and founding father that was carved into the Mount Rushmore.